When you actually truly enter into the spiritual process, any sense of awakening, when that starts to come to you, all these gaps starts to disappear. I am this and you are that. I am higher, you are lower. Start to actually gets dissolved. You for the first time start to experience the essence of what is Purnata and what is oneness.
Pranam Gurudev. Vijay Nair ji from Bangalore is asking you that Guruji, once we grow spiritually, we are at a higher level than the materialistic people. How to handle such a gap?
So, again, Tamsama Jyotirgamaya, which means it's a wrong understanding. The origin of the question is not correct. The premises from where you're coming from is faulty. That's what the non-clarity or illusion is all about. When you start to grow spiritually, you don't become higher. And the non-spiritual, so-called non-spiritual people don't become lower than you. That's the whole wrong understanding and wrong way of looking at it. Actually, the absolute opposite starts to happen. The gaps, the distinctions, the divisions that our mind has created between us and the world, I and they, me and you, us and them, this gap, which is the entire creation of the mind. Mind is what creates gaps and compartments and boxes, and it divides. When you actually truly enter into the spiritual process, any sense of awakening, when that starts to come to you, all these gaps starts to disappear. I am this and you are that. I am higher, you are lower. Start to actually gets dissolved. You for the first time start to experience the essence of what is Purnata and what is oneness. You start to feel one with every being of this earth. You start to feel one with not just the living entities, even non-living entity. In Buddhism, they use the word sentient beings, everything that is living. And then the opposite of that is insentient beings, that which is not living. So for an example, let's say this piece of device that I have here, yeah? You will consider that as non-sentient being. But as you start to grow spiritually, even you will start to feel a deep connection and reverence for matter also, for that which you so far considered non-sentient being. You enter into a zone where everything is sentient. You follow. So actually then, nobody is higher, nobody is lower. We all become one. The distinctions and the divisions that the mind has created start to get dissolved completely. So opposite happens. Then actually for the first time you enter into a space where you can embrace anybody and everybody. The higher and lower disappears. Practically, even when you see people talking about absolute worldly things which you're not interested in, yeah, about their grastha life which you're absolutely not interested in, about their, stupid issues that you know are the creation of their own imagination, and they're stuck in those stupid issues. Those issues are just fragment of their imagination. Even when you know them, if you see them operating from that layer of ajnanata, you don't feel pride that, oh, these are jnanis and I'm so jnani. You don't do that. You actually start to have a prayer in your heart. And you start to relate with them also, because at some point, you were also like them. You acted, behaved just like them. You thought, felt just like them. You were part of that mindset. When I'm saying them, is not as a separation, but as a mindset. You too lived in that zone of the mind, that illusionary, tamasic zone, asatya zone of mind, the illusionary zone of mind. You also lived there. You know the pains of that zone. You know the dukkha of that zone. Illusion is a dukkha. When you know that, because you can relate with this, because you also have lived that sometime or the other. So now actually in your heart, instead of having this division, there'll be prayer of compassion and the prayer of will. Prayer of compassion that may they also know the truth. Truth about their own reality, about the play of their own mind, truth about the Anandamaya Kosh that exists. And you make that prayer also. Apart from feeling this compassion, you also pray that may they also are removed from this illusion of the mind and enter into the space of Ananda in them. Because then you realize, if the spiritual awakening is happening in you, then you realize this Anandamaya Kosh is also existing in them. The way it existed in you, which you never knew, but through some spiritual experiences, now you got to know, it exists in them also. What is the difference? Yeah? So the higher, lower, touchable, non-touchable, all the distinctions, differences and gaps and divisions that the mind has created, even the society has created, start to vanish. So the pehchana of a true saint or person in whom the spiritual awakening is activating, what is the measure of that person? How do you identify that person? How do you evaluate that person? Is just this. In that person, you will not see the divisions, or you will see the divisions disappearing, the distinctions dissolving. The oneness is becoming much more visible in that person. That person is walking towards Anandamaya Kosha. So even when you start to walk towards Anandamaya Kosha, this starts to become apparent. The removal of the dissolution of these distinctions and the gaps and the high and low start to disappear. And the beautiful word that we use for that is samta, sammabhava. You start to operate from a sammabhava. Sambhava means equanimity. Equanimity. I, you, they, them are all equal. You start to experience this samatha in you, this sammabhava in you, and you again start to operate from this sammabhava. So out of this, if you have to take one clue or practice for your spiritual journey, show that, because otherwise many times, if the spiritual journey is not guided well, but you are able to follow some discipline, you are able to do some dharana, your willpower is becoming stronger because you're doing some processes right, danger is there. The ego builds up. That's the reason in a lot of so-called spiritual people, you see a lot of ego in them. Because some things got activated in them, but maybe they didn't have a guru, or their gurus couldn't guide them, or they couldn't take guidance from their guru, or whatever the reason is. They couldn't work with this. They couldn't understand the nuances of this. And the spiritual process which could have taken them into the Anandamaya Kosha is taking them into the ego kosha. Their aham is becoming much more subtle and stronger. And these divisions are becoming much more profound. Do you follow? Yeah? So that's the caveat. Please remember, none of the spiritual process, not even if you master one yoga asana, of let's say sitting in a siddha asana or just sitting in a sukha asana, Even if you master one asana, and if there is any sense of ego achievement in you, that I am strong, I can stand on 1 feet for 10 minutes, I'm sorry. You're going against what Rishi Patanjali said. You're not entering into the yoga. Because entering into your real yoga means union. There is no space of ego existence there. And union means the disappearance, the dissolution of the divisions. That's what union is all about. Yeah, that's the essence or the meaning of yoga. We follow? So that's the process. Be very careful, watch out. Through any spiritual process, any knowledge or wisdom that you're gaining, is ego expanding or the divisions disappearing? So today I'm giving you this Mapadand, your own measurement. Please, every day, measure your success. Watch yourself. Is the ego inflating because now you've read 3 granthas? Or is the division dissolving? Which means now the scripture that you read is entering into your bloodstream. It's becoming your breath. It's giving fragrance to your life now. Which means now you know how to read a scripture. Not just to gain the scripture on your head as borrowed knowledge. Yeah? Follow this. Again, listen to this carefully. I'm sharing with you some very subtle nuances which I see in thousands of people. They do spiritual process, but they're not guided well to not let this become an ego inflation process. We don't want that. The world is full of egoistic people. We want to remove the divisions. We want to enter into the Samabhav, this union of yoga. Only through that we'll be able to enter into the Anandamaya Kosha. Yeah? Ego inflation will not allow you to enter into the Anandamaya Kosha. It will take you much more away from the Ananda. Yeah? Think about this, meditate on this, and I'm sure this is going to help you. Thank you very much.